panelist is Silvia Sartor, a researcher at the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. She has a background in biology and oceanography, and since 1993, she has been working in geotechnologies and has been leading up the development of the Santos Web Atlas. Welcome, Silvia. You have 5 minutes to introduce your work.
Boa tarde, eu consigo compartilhar a minha tela? Eu tenho trabalhado vinculada à Universidade de São Paulo, que é a maior universidade brasileira. Dentro dessa universidade, nós temos alguns centros que trabalham com questões marinhas, e deles se localiza na...
Okay, as part of this, we have marine topics, and in fact, I am doubting whether you can see my screen or not. Can you please tell me if you are seeing my screen?
Yes, we're seeing your screen and your slide.
Yes, we can see it.
Bem, desses centros fica na Baixada Santista.
One of these centers is in the coast of Sao Paulo, near the capital, Sao Paulo. It is really the center where I am currently working. It's part of the university.
Além disso, eu trabalho muito vinculada à comunidade.
I also work with a community or various communities and shorelines, and most of them are very poor. They're favelas with a great deal of environmental problems. They're fishing communities, they work with arts and crafts. But now they have managed to have some sort of environmental compensation. The area where I most work in is in the estuary of the Santista area. This is a region where the Santos Port is located. There's also several oil industries and petrochemical industries there that are definitely going to have a big impact on the region. Their impact will be through pollution, and they will, of course, cause the death of the fishing potential for the survival of these fishermen. I think in this image, you can see how the community lives. As I said previously, it's a very poor community.
Por favor, vocês que têm aí os slides, podem apresentar o último deles?
You who have the slides, could you go on to the last one? I'm sorry for this, but yes, could you show that last one? Thank you.
Sim, eu estou falando da representação dessa comunidade, né?
I'm talking about the representation of this community specifically. I have worked in supporting the development and creation of projects so as to get environmental compensation, because there are frequent accidents in the region. And in addition to that, I also work with the marine environmental protection areas. That is important for governance of marine areas. There is definitely a relationship. So what ends up happening when we talk about these vulnerable communities what happens is that at the end of the day, they find out about projects that are going to impact the port. They end up hearing about them very late, very, very late in time, and they only learn it through us, who work closely with community leaders. The leaders in these communities help us to also work in other aspects that sometimes have opposite effects to some of the events that take place, such as public hearings, for example. Well, let me explain. First, an environmental impact study is made, and then once that is presented to the community, usually what happens is that the community has no way, does not know how to defend its own interests. So the actions of university researchers is very important. Their engagement is significant, but there's not enough of it. There's very little of it. Researchers end up being very, very far from practical issues and really being able to take the information to the communities. So what ends up happening is that some leaders take on this role. So you have leaders together with indigenous community leaders talking about public policies that end up impoverishing the communities even more. And this is the population that survives through fishing. We have 2,000 fishermen registered here. And as you can see, an accident that took place in a fuel container company. This was a huge accident, and they're very common, they're very frequent. In this region, people don't have any tools to clean up the environment. So there's a lot to take care of, a lot to address. Here, you know that Brazil is huge. It's like a whole continent. So what often happens is that the South imports workers, cheaper labor for the construction of roads that join Sao Paulo to this region. And those workers, once the work is done, find themselves with no way to support themselves there or to even go back to their places of origin. There's nobody to take care of them. So they end up being in these uninhabited areas. This is the case here. They're in an area where they shouldn't be. And if we talk of resorts like Guarujá, half of the population live in favela type conditions. And with today's policies in Brazil, the impoverishment, together with the lack of care, to put it lightly, the lack of care for environmental topics, this has made equality much, much worse throughout the country overall. And it's very hard to really implement big changes. This is an image here. Since I don't really represent any government, I've worked as a consultant, developing maps or environmental impact studies. When I was involved in that, I realized we produced many pages, many documents that really did not help the communities, nor the public official. Nobody's really making an analysis that is congruent with the real needs of the region. So with that viewpoint in mind, we began to develop these coastal maps. This atlas is very important, even though it is only in a pilot phase for De Santos, but it has high potential to codify the academic language and make it more easily accessible. In fact, it's already been used many times, showing how industries or illegal or irregular occupations have transformed the mangroves into polluted areas. There are areas where we have lost 50% of the mangroves, even though they're highly important for these families of fishermen in the region.
Silvia.
So I think with our colleagues, we can now go on. Thank you for the time for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And we